Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming to our biweekly meeting on community resilience in Lansing. We will start off just by introducing ourselves and then kind of go back to the board and discuss some of this. So my name is Charla Burnett. I'm a doctoral candidate in global governance and human security. I'm also the co-founder of Organizing Together. And we're hoping to be able to bring organizations together across various fields and integrate social equity into a long-term sustainable development plan for the city. And so we're hoping to bring together organizations that might not have been able to have a voice before. And so I've been interested in community resilience and how we measure it, and how do we build stronger cities so that when we are faced with disasters, or in this case, the pandemic, that we might be able to harness our connections and relationships more effectively. So this is kind of a long-term labor of love. We would also like to raise money for organizations that are specifically dedicated to this work. So we'll also be doing an outreach campaign to raise money for this strategic planning kind of facilitation process. So yeah, thank you for coming, Randy. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Randy Dykhuis, and I am one of the co-conveners of a group called the Lansing Environmental Action Team. We've been meeting for a couple of years and got started as an outgrowth of the indivisible groups that formed in the Lansing area in 2017 after the 2016 election. Anna Fisher and I discovered each other through Indivisible and discovered a mutual passion for environmental issues. And that's how we got started meeting. We've since attracted folks who are not part of Indivisible, and you know, people have come and gone over time. And we, in the last year or so, have focused our attention on a couple of main issues, both of which are around climate change and how the Lansing area responds to the challenges that climate change is already bringing and the greater changes that it will bring. So those two things are getting the city to hire a sustainability coordinator and get serious about developing a climate action plan, something that many Michigan cities have already done and some did 10 or more years ago. Lansing has no environmental commission or board, something again that many Michigan cities do. I think we had some impact on that in that the mayor did hire somebody in April of this year, announced the hiring in April. She started mid-May. So she's just getting her feet on the ground, as it were.
And what's the title of her role?
I think her title is Sustainability Coordinator. Her name is Lori Welch. She's been with the city for quite a long time. I want to say more than 20 years. And her previous role was in around recycling and waste management. So she's got some environmental background. And she seems quite enthused about this job. I think our concern about the position right now is where it sits in the hierarchy, in that she's at least 2 layers below the mayor, and we're concerned about the visibility that she gets. Because we all know that the system determines how effective you can be, and so if you put a really good person in a really bad system, it doesn't matter how good the person is.
Yeah, especially if the role doesn't have any kind of cross-sectoral power, because to actually be truly sustainable, it requires the cooperation across departments that often don't actually talk to one another. So if it doesn't have that empowerment, then it's usually not a very productive position or role.
Precisely. And she needs administrative and other support. One FTE working on this is not going to be nearly enough.
No.
But it's a start. So we're happy with what we've got. Well, yeah, we're happy with what we got, and now we want to build from there. And then the other sort of projects is around the Board of Water and Light and figuring out ways to encourage them to be more progressive in their adoption of renewable energy. Every year, the board has 2 commissioners whose terms expire. And so we took it upon ourselves earlier this year to publicly call for the mayor to appoint 2 new commissioners. And these are mayoral appointments, they're not elected seats. And both the commissioners indicated that they wanted to be reappointed, and usually that means an automatic reappointment. But this year, things changed, and it wasn't a pro forma vote by the city council. The nominations were sent to the committee of the whole with the instruction that the candidates be interviewed and not simply rubber stamped. So that gives us a little bit of a fighting chance. We'll see whether it really amounts to us getting a new commissioner or not. But so that's sort of what we, in a broad brushstrokes, where we've been focused. But what attracted me to this effort and what you guys are doing is some concerns that I've had about LEAT and our structure and our organization. And that was really crystallized for me a couple of, maybe a month or so ago. There was a webinar about Grand Rapids climate free or whatever, some net zero by 2030 or something like that. And where they talked about the intersection, how important it was that climate change and environmental justice be seen as a single issue.
Right. And
that really resonated with me because we are a very white and pretty old group. I think we have one person who's probably around 30 years old, and the rest of us have a lot of gray hair, which, obviously has an impact on how we view what we do. Mm-hmm. So I'm really interested in making contact and listening to a broader coalition of groups around environmental justice. I had a very preliminary conversation with LaShawn Araby of the Poor People's Campaign, but COVID hit and that kind of stopped. My conversation with her stopped. I think they've continued to work, but I think that's a real gap in LEAT in our organization. So that's really where I'd like to try and make some other connections.
Well, I think that's great.
Well, thank you for the work that you are doing on that and making that kind of a central push to your organization. Because, I came to similar conclusions. I worked for Greenpeace for many years, and was very interested in the historical roots of the environmental movement. And it's very clear that it was comprised of more, kind of privileged white folks who aren't necessarily basically trying to exert or kind of exert their sovereignty by way of NIMBYism, instead of kind of looking at some of the negative impacts, even from addressing environmental problems. So it kind of segues, just a quick introduction on myself. I'm also a PhD student in the Global Governance and Human Security program, and a National Science Foundation fellow, looking at kind of coasting communities as it relates to the environment, the natural versus kind of societal interactions there. And the first kind of thing that I was interested in was the hazardous chemicals regime that, as it exists at the international level. The long history of kind of global north to global south dumping of toxic waste, as a way to kind of address our society's issues with consumption and waste. But as I dug deeper into it, I also saw, many attempts to change that kind of racially problematic dynamic of dumping, global rich countries, dumping on the developing world. I noticed that to fix that problem, we started kind of, reorienting those networks to poor communities within the global north. So Native American reservations, lower income communities, which, as you're, kind of pointed out with the intersectionality lens, typically, class, race, gender, all of these things are kind of correlated with one another, which is problematic. And it led me to thinking about, obviously climate change is going to be one of the greatest issues that we have to face in the next several decades and longer. And my concern is that, again, obviously, policy making and going forward with environmental management is important, but oftentimes, or maybe not oftentimes, but sometimes, the policy prescriptions can exacerbate a lot of those socioeconomic problems that already exist in society. So specifically what I'm looking at now is how climate adaptation programs are implemented, how it's chosen, who's represented in those processes, and then looking at, basically what the aftermath of those initiatives are. Because what I've, based on my own research, I see that a lot of the areas that were kind of, armored, say, like, so I'm a native from Boston, so they armored the coastline, and, creating all of these lovely green spaces. But as a result, without proper kind of like zoning laws, a lot of the less affluent people there are pushed out of those neighborhoods. So it basically kind of creates this cycle where, the poor people we impose the environmental externalities on them, and the wealthier people are the ones who get to live, next to these nice parks and have the kind of the safety of that kind of climate change protection. So, figuring out a socially equitable way to, address climate change, that, this is a moment in time where we could actually do something to undo some of those historic and contemporary, inequities and injustices. And we need to make sure that we're not kind of just respinning the wheel. So I did appreciate what you said about kind of more focused in on the environmental justice aspect of that, because I think that oftentimes is a missing piece to kind of the global and domestic environmental governance push. So yeah. Happy that you came today, and we're looking forward to getting your input. And I will say my greatest achievement, and full disclosure, is my wife Charla. She is the founder of our organization, our fearless leader, and I am very fortunate to work under someone like her for this OT initiative. As she is phenomenal at getting people like yourself, who can make a difference, into these conversations in a way that could, possibly have some substantive change. So yeah, welcome.
Great. Thank you.
And so now that we have spent the last couple of months thinking about the methods that we would like to employ to be able to get feedback, we're going to take you kind of through this planning process that we've developed, and we're hoping over the course of the year to meet with many different organizations across the spectrum of community resilience in Lansing, get all of this information, but also use these recorded sessions as a way to learn more about your organization. We share them on our YouTube page. And so, you know, if you would like to have one with a wider LEAT representation, we can do another one. We're really interested in sorry, I'm too tired this morning, not enough coffee, to categorize, you know, and chronicleize the history of environmentalism and kind of this broader movement in Lansing itself. Because I think a lot of times, and I know you stressed that you feel like a lot of the LEAT members are older. I have been working in activist spaces for a decade, and I truly believe that sometimes we as younger activists have a hard time taking on the role of learning from people who are older than us, and we want to make sure that your wisdom and your knowledge about this space is captured somewhere for other people to continue to learn. So this is kind of all a part of this movement. So we might invite you back for an interview at some point to talk more about a longer history and some of your other members, because we have so much to learn.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I'm getting some feedback now. Michael, could you?
Mute.
Yeah, thank you. So the first part, we always like to get feedback from our leaders in the community on what organizations do you see being key points in social equity, in waste management, food security, and sustainable development. And I'll go ahead and fill these in for you as you kind of give a glimpse into what you think.
Okay. Okay.
And if you'd like, you know, while you're thinking, I can get the ball rolling, because we did send out a number of surveys to people within the community and ask them, you know, what they saw as kind of like the most visible organizations working in some dimension of social equity.
Sure.
So if you'd like me to start there, where you kind of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
So, and Charla, if you want to write these down as well.
I'll write them down for you.
So in no particular order, the Fledge.
For social equity, kind of like everything.
Pardon me?
The Fledge would be for everything, right?
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is the kind of the thing about social equity. I mean, it encapsulates many different fields, disciplines, you know, areas of society and governance. So some of these organizations may not have many things in common. They may do, they might, but so we'll be able to parse through that after, and we can create a typology that works after we do this. So the next on the list from the survey was Black Lives Matter. Lansing Area Mutual Aid, LAMA. Punks with Lunch. The Women's Resource Center.
One second.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. What was the last one? Sorry.
The Women's Resource Center.
The Greater Lansing Women's Center.
Yeah. Let's see. The Refugee Development Center.
I'll have to change that.
Sorry, if you hear our dog, she is sleeping right now and
that's her
barking to herself. So.
Oh, that's so funny. What was the last one?
The Refugee Development Center. Did you get that one? Next one that came up was the Fireworks Foundation.
The Firecracker Foundation.
Yeah, someone put it in as Fireworks Foundation, so the Firecracker Foundation, pardon me. Like I said, I'm a Boston native, so I don't necessarily know all of the organizations doing great work in the city quite yet. An organization called Meta Peace. Okay, Allen Neighborhood Community Center, so ANC, just to save some time.
I can spell neighborhood right. You think a PhD would give me that at least?
Gives my dad tons of ammunition anytime I do something stupid. It's like, you might be getting a PhD, but you're still you. Are you ready for the next one?
Yes.
Cardboard Profits.
Would you consider them social equity?
I mean, I believe they work with homelessness, and so I mean, just generally access. So again, we can kind of rearrange things if they're not quite in the box that they need to be. But this is straight from the survey.
What was called?
Cardboard Profits.
Okay.
And only a few more. Lansing Made 517.
Okay.
Someone wrote GLCC, so I'm assuming, is that the Great Lakes Christian College, or is that something else? If we're not sure, we can just leave that off for now.
I don't know.
Okay, maybe just leave that off for now. I'm not quite sure if that's what that person was talking of. And then the last one would be the Lansing Art Gallery. So I think they host different programs that, again, provide access for a number of different people.
Okay.
All right, so that's what we have for the survey, and can open it up to whatever is missing. I'm sure there are tons.
What was the last one? Sorry.
Oh, the Lansing Art Gallery. And I don't know if that's connected to the umbrella group.
Okay.
It's a good start.
Sounds good. So what do you think, Randy? You got other ones to add?
Yeah, I do.
Great.
So I would put the NAACP into social equity. Sunrise.
Right.
And it go under either that or sustainable development.
You know what? I'll start typing these out, Charla, and I'll put them in the chat. So if you want to just keep listing them out, Randy.
Okay. Extinction Rebellion.
Extinction Rebellion.
Sierra Club.
Sierra Club. Okay.
The Peace Education Center. The Poor People's Campaign. And I'm not sure about this. I don't know where this stands right now, but Dinah DeWald, who you probably know.
She's fantastic.
She's amazing too. The Lansing People's Initiative was a project that she was trying to get organized. I don't know where that stands right now in the wake of everything. Those are the ones that I thought of while you were talking.
This is important for us too to gather these things, because we, as a part of kind of, you know, just the ethos of our consultancy as well as this project, is to not rewrite the wheel.
Yeah.
And kind of make work redundant. You know, we want to build this kind of larger coalition and create these social cohesion networks that will that we can really leverage in a, you know, substantive way.
Perfect. So yeah, I'll get them from that into the chat.
Okay.
Let's see. Except I can never figure out how to open the chat when I'm sharing my screen. Participants. I'm not sure if I even can. More? Yes, chats. There it is. Okay, great. Sunrise, Extension Rebellion. Sierra Club's a good one.
I remember when I was working for Greenpeace, though, it's so interesting, kind of the chauvinisms that exist between all of the different organizations working in the nonprofit sector, because, you know, it was basically like, you know, almost like a gang war between nonprofit groups, where like we were fighting for territory, and like the Sierra Club were these, you know, godless monsters who, you know, only wanted the destruction of the planet, of course, you know, and, you know, and I think that speaks to the problem sometimes with the nonprofit world, is it operates very much the same as the public sector, where groups are just very much vying for the same, you know, small pot of money and resources and attention. And the work could be done in you know, a much more robust way if we just figured out how to work together.
Yeah.
Sure. For sure.
And I will say, Randy, while she's doing that we also collected an Excel spreadsheet of all of we kind of just bottom trough the entire kind of Lansing area, you know, larger Ingham County area, for organizations in all of these different dimensions: food security, sustainable development, and waste management. But we are definitely trying. We've already sent out some emails, but like Charla mentioned at the top, that we, you know, it's difficult at this moment in time to kind of get commitments from people to do these things. But we do have a fairly robust kind of reference system that we're working with here so far. So, but again, any ones that you know that are particularly active in these areas that are worth talking to, particularly with like respect to waste management.
We have less organizations, I feel like, working on that.
Yeah, I mean, and many of which aren't really kind of working in like a, you know, with any kind of notions of social equity. They're just kind of different independent contractors who pick up waste, you know. And what I'm hoping for is, you know, finding organizations that are focused on, say, you know, reducing consumption, conspicuous consumption of resources, like not just finding more efficient ways to dispose of waste and recycling, which are all great, but they're all very carbon intensive processes. So, you know, having an emphasis on, you know, the better use of our products, you know, and that connects to food waste and, you know, all of these other things. So
also like encouraging stores to end like individual packaging.
Right.
These types of campaigns that can be helpful.
Okay.
And I know that there are a lot of people, at least on the east side, who have really been wanting to find a store where they, you know, can bring their own bins and not have to use any extra waste and consumption. So, but yeah, I think for time we'll stop here for this. And if you think of anything else, please feel free to email us, and we will be reaching out to these organizations, and hopefully we can get representatives from each of them to come and kind of do this with us as well.
Okay.
For the SWOT analysis, we're really interested in learning a little bit more about what you think are the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that the Lansing community is currently facing.
That the Lansing community is facing?
Yeah, so what strengths do you think that we have?
MSU, so the proximity to a world-class university.
That doesn't create any problems for, because again, I'm not as familiar with Lansing and with respect to MSU and East Lansing, but I remembered when I worked at the University of New Hampshire, you know, it was Durham, the city that it was in, that really reaped the benefits of you know, it being centrally located there. But the surrounding cities, you had this kind of town versus gown dynamic where they actually weren't getting their money's worth, you know, and so it would be interesting to hear how that is a little bit different here.
Yeah, I mean, this might be viewed as a strength for Randy, but for someone else, it might be seen as a threat. So we'll talk about that if it arises.
Sure, and I'm not even arguing that point. I'm just that's interesting.
Yeah. So so a couple of points. One, to speak to what Charla just said. My experience with SWOT analysis is that you have the same thing in multiple boxes. What is an opportunity can also be a threat. What's a weakness, you know, so on and so forth.
Right.
But to your point, yes, that happens. That certainly happens here too. There are many people who live around here who think that East Lansing is just a little bubble. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, they're their own little self-contained world, and don't quite know what really happens in the real world. So, sure. On the other hand, there are an awful lot of very smart people at MSU, yes. And we have a couple of MSU folks in our group who are, you know, who bring a lot of added value. So there is, I believe that it's a strength to have them here, and that the Lansing area would be much less vital if there were no MSU here. In fact, I think we would look a lot like a dying Rust Belt town if it weren't for MSU.
That makes sense. Yeah. So there's no brain drain really. It's all still within the greater Lansing area.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Any other strengths?
Yeah, I think that there's a wellspring of activism in Lansing. There are a lot of people who care a lot about stuff and are willing to put work into doing good things and making good things happen. I think it's a very livable community. I don't know if that's a strength or not. And what do I mean by that? I'm not quite sure what I mean by that. I have to think about. I have to think about what I mean by that. I was thinking about when I moved here. I moved from a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, and it felt like a really small town. But now that I'm here, it feels like it's just the right size. I've been here about 15, well, longer than that. Almost 30 years. So it feels like you can get around by walking and you can get around by biking if you've got some, you know, it takes some intestinal fortitude to do that. There are other things about it that are not. Transportation, I think, is a weakness overall, but so I guess I'm listening to myself talk. I'm contradicting myself. But.
No, it's okay.
It makes a perfect sense too in the context, because I'm an outsider here, so I have that kind of perspective. And when I moved here, you're right, like, you know, coming from Boston, which is still kind of a small big city, you know, this has a smaller town vibe to it.
It does.
Which
Yeah.
makes it feel like, kind of coupled with that idea that there's a lot of energy around activism.
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of community engagement and energy around that, which I think is hugely important, because that's kind of one of the underlying notions here, is strengthening those networks of social cohesion, or whatever, connectivity, whatever you want to call it, makes a community more resilient. And empirical studies kind of show that even if you don't have the most resources relative to another place, oftentimes communities with these strong networks are able to recover faster in post-disaster scenarios. So I think the livability idea is an important one.
Yeah. I guess I think that state government here is a strength as well.
So it kind of being like a hub for
Yeah, I think it brings a certain dynamism to the city. Could also make it pretty weird.
Yeah. It's strange too, because I feel like most people who are not from Michigan have no idea that Lansing is the capital. I've gone 30 years of my life thinking like Detroit was the capital of Michigan. I mean, that doesn't say much for the educational system, that we're all kind of steeped in. But so it's a very strange thing where it's both the capital and kind of like an understated place.
It is, not unlike Springfield, Illinois. If you've ever been there, it's kind of the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So you move on to
if you want to move on to weaknesses.
Yeah, and sorry to put all this on you. It's just we're really happy to have you here.
Just found this platform, so we're so excited.
It would have been nicer to have a couple more LEAT people here. Brainstorming is much easier when you've got a few other people to bounce ideas off.
Definitely. Well, there is always next time. We're hoping to keep this going.
Yeah, we're gonna
keep we do something.
Until this board is so full of different perspectives that we can gather some analysis to present to the mayor's office.
I'm so sorry. I have to take this call. I'll be right back.
No problem. So transportation is a big weakness. The bus system is barely adequate.
I agree.
Yeah, we can do a lot more with bike lanes. There's much that can be done.
There is so much more that can be done. And I honestly, for our city, there are deserts of no transportation. And not just because of the lack of bus routes, but the lack of affordable transportation. I think that our city would be very surprised at how much more activity that they would have downtown if they had a bus line for free. Especially from communities that can't really get anywhere without a car.
Definitely.
I think that another weakness that I see in our city is a lack of communication between the local government and the people.
Yes.
Lack of knowledge flows, really. I know that they do post some stuff on their website, but I still feel like I'm always trying to navigate to figure out who is, where. I applied for their civic academy. That's, and I still haven't heard anything back about that. But that's still it's a selection process. They only take a certain number of people. And the way that Andy Crawford explained it to me was that this really is more for grooming people to enter the government than it is necessarily educating the wider public.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's competitive.
I knew it was competitive, but I did not know that there was that ulterior motive. Because I always thought it was sort of that civic, we want everybody to know about city government, so we're going to educate our population sort of deal.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Well,
And I think it was a sore subject because I had an interview a couple weeks ago for their resource coordinator position. And I asked about it in the interview, and I kind of felt like I might have caused some hostility in the room because I like misinterpreted the reason why we were having this Civic Academy, and I asked, what could we tape it and provide it online for people who can't like join, and they pretty much shut down that conversation. Like that's just not what the academy is for, is pretty much what I was told.
Interesting. Sort of along those lines, but a little different, is the lack of regional planning, regional conversations. It seems like a lot more.
You're muted, Michael.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, how is the cooperation between East Lansing and Lansing? Because I remember the last community meeting, someone mentioned the fact that, some of the institutions, there's overlap and they share certain officials. I think that was true for the fire department. So I was wondering if, since they are the ones seemingly with the most money to do things, I was wondering if we had high cooperation levels with them or not. Just thinking about this regionalism notion,
I don't know where, honestly, I don't know where that stands at the fire department at the moment. I just think that there's a lot more that could be done, and it all comes down to territoriality. You get right down to it. But you sort of, if you look at Lansing, Lansing Township, East Lansing, Meridian Township, and Delta Township, see, there's no reason why there shouldn't be some kind of a group that meets regularly to figure out how we can all do things together better.
Definitely.
The whole reinventing the wheel sort of deal. There's so many more resources that could be brought to bear.
Yeah, that's actually where I would want the sustainability person would be overseeing, kind of like, obviously in cooperation with all of these different authorities, but having the ability to kind of plan on a more regional basis, I think would be obviously would broaden the impact.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I've had these conversations with people in the mayor's office, and they believe that they're doing enough, that they already have these conversations that are open and nobody's showing up. So either they do have space for this and no one is showing up because nobody knows about it, or they don't.
Yeah. Well, and what does it mean when they say we have this space and nobody shows up? So what does that mean? That they set a meeting and say, if you're interested, come, and then nobody comes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cockeyed. That's a dim view of how people actually work and do stuff, because it takes work to make collaboration happen. My career was in librarianship, and it was about how to get libraries to work together for the common good. And it was hard. It was really hard. And librarians are by nature collaborative. We like to share stuff. And still, there's this element of territoriality in what each one did. And so when you talk about city officials who are really invested in their turf, just setting a meeting and say, hey, y'all, show up. Well, that doesn't cut it.
No, you have to build a repertoire with the leadership in these organizations. You have to spend time and money and resources actually marketing these. You know, I heard a couple weeks ago that there were discussion open with the police department for the public to come and discuss some of the issues that we've been happening in our community, and nobody showed up, and they're like, I guess nobody really cares that much about this topic. And it's like, but I didn't hear about it. Where did you?
Right. Who knew? Right.
Who knew about it?
Right.
And so I believe what you said is true. Like, collaboration takes work, a lot of work. And, you know, we've been struggling over the last few months with COVID and everything on this specific project, but we're not going to give up.
Right.
You know, it's just going to be slower.
Right.
And I also think that prior to COVID, our neighborhood associations and our local government did not try to provide alternative ways of participating online. For me, I really hope that even after COVID, our city council are done in the same way. Still, you can come in and use Zoom, and you can ask questions and you can participate. Because for me, I felt so guilty this last year as a new mom, not being able to participate in my community in the way that I would have really liked to. Because by the time I'm out of work and by the time the baby's been fed, it's, you know, I'm so exhausted, or I'm going to miss or be late, and nobody wants to show up late. And so I think it's provided people with an opportunity to participate in our local government that they never had before. People, you know, with the people are disabled, people have later jobs, they, you know, all these things. And it would just be nice if we could make it as accessible to people as possible.
I agree.
I do think that is one of the key challenges of working either in nonprofit or working with public sector institutions is just working across jurisdictional lines.
Yes.
I was working on a project for the Neponset River watershed over in Boston. It runs through Dorchester, but it also runs through about 12 other cities. And some of the cities are more forward-looking in terms of conserving water and reducing pollution, and others are not, you know, and a lot of the downstream riparians are kind of at the mercy of those further up the stream. So, you know, it just, for me, highlighted the challenges that even kind of at the local level of governance, it is still dramatically difficult to kind of coordinate all of these parties and getting them to kind of align their incentives and their interests to be a part of this, you know. And I think that is a part of the task for us as well, is figuring out which of those organizations, you know, really do have a stake in, you know, I mean, some of the competition is good, but having a stake in actually cooperating to get a project done, you know. So I would actually put that possibly under the threats as just the kind of the run-of-the-mill challenge of negotiating through the multi-stakeholder process, you know. And that's something that needs to be managed carefully. And fortunately for us, you know, Charla is, that's a part of her research, is managing participatory processes and doing them effectively to the extent that you can actually get something accomplished, you know, and not just have this kind of lip service being done to stakeholder engagement, because it is important. It just creates a massive challenge for getting things accomplished.
I just want to be cognizant of time. I have to run in about 5 or so minutes. I wanted to make sure that we've, you know, if you had any opportunities and threats you wanted us to throw up on here, we could. And then Michael will run you through the profile. And so we can just get a little bit more information about LEAT and some of your strengths and weaknesses.
Okay. I think one of the threats that we face is lack of imagination on the part of our municipal leaders.
There does seem to be like this conservatism.
Yeah, that would be the word for it. Yeah.
That, you know, this is just how we've always done it.
It's how we've always done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a certain insularity that happens, and I think does happen in city government. You know, we all know each other. We've all been doing this for a long time. I noticed that at the city council committee, the whole meeting on Monday when they were interviewing some candidates for one of the boards. it was like old home week. You know, these are board members who'd been on the boards for a while. They all knew the city council members. They were trading stories about family, and which it's not a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing. And in some ways that helps grease the skids to get things done. On the other hand, so there's opportunity and threat on the same thing. On the other hand, it does breed insularity and conservatism, and a sense that, well, we've always done it this way, or I'm not going to say that because I might piss this person off who I've known forever. You know, Michigan is that Midwestern nice kind of city, it's kind of state, and we do that. Whereas you come from Boston, you're a little bit more brash. So.
You're muted again.
Sorry, I was going to say I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, not at all. Do you have any opportunities you'd like us to add?
So the flip side of that lack of imagination is that there is a lot of room for creativity. We've got opportunities to reimagine what kind of community that we want. And again, taking from that strength of having a lot of sort of an activist sort of mindset among many of the community, that sort of can be a fertile breeding ground for coming up with some new change. And there's been a lot written over the last couple of months about how an extended time of crisis like we've been in for the last several months can be provide a framework or a ground for springing forward in a dramatic way, in the same way that the Depression did it in the 30s, at least in the U.S. In other parts of the world, it wasn't so good, but in the U.S., the Depression, created the New Deal, which improved the lives of millions of people dramatically for decades. So I think there is that possibility here, and that's where I guess what the hope that keeps me going.
For sure. So it looks like Michael's already started working on your organization profile.
Yeah.
And like I said, please feel free to share it with other LEAT members.
Yeah.
If you guys need another set of personal member profiles, please let us know. All you do is you just click on the sticky note. You can do whatever color you want if you want to keep it color coordinated. You can write the skill and then you rank it. So are you advanced in that skill? Are you intermediate? Or are you learning that skill? The reason why we want to know this is because we want to adequately understand what resources we can draw from in the community.
Okay.
So let's say if you have, for me, and I have GIS skills, which is pretty important, especially when kind of mapping out where these organizations are and where they serve. But I also, I speak French, so that can be like my intermediate. So that's a good skill. If you have good connections, that's a skill. I think moving forward, I might create a little board that has a list of skills, because I know that it's hard for people to take things in abstract. So this is a learning experience. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So I'm going to let Michael lead you through that bit of the process.
Okay.
And then please let us know if you have any questions. Once we meet with all of the organizations that we're building on this master list and get their feedback on the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we're going to bring everyone together and we're going to strategize on how we can make use of these opportunities and strengths. And then develop kind of some policy points together. And then submit it to the mayor's office. Okay. And then try to do some fundraising around even if the mayor is not going to support, even if their office isn't going to support what we want to do as a group, we're going to collaborate with our OT consultants through our foundation to raise money for these projects.
Sounds good.
Because we don't need the government we can do this ourselves.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
All right. Well, I'm going to prep for my next meeting. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Charla.
Okay, and Randy, I'm going to share my screen now, just so we can do this.
Do you want me? Do I need to make you?
No, I think I am okay. Okay, hold on just a second. Of course, that's in the way. All right. Here we are. Okay, so I was looking through the website, but I didn't see any specific language on a mission. Did you want to supplement that for me, or?
Yeah, the website actually needs a lot of work. Yeah, let me see. Hang on a second.
And I don't know if you have access to this board right now, which I believe you do. You know, feel free to just copy and paste in these.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to paste what we have been our working mission statement. Where do I put that?
If you see where I am on the screen, I don't know if you're seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
There's this organizational thing here, and the second box down where I've just selected, there's mission.
Mission.
Right on the left. Yeah, perfect. So you just double click that.
Whoops. Let me paste.
Hopefully you have editable access. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I've got a little user error here.
That's okay. Take your time.
For some reason, it's not letting me paste.
Okay.
I can type, but I can't paste.
If you don't mind typing that in, I'll start checking off some of the other things. So in terms of the organization, is it a nonprofit or more of a coalition?
It's more of a coalition. We have no official status.
Okay. Coalition. And what is your role within the organization?
Oh, that's good.
Is it just kind of generally volunteer?
I typically call myself a co-convener. I hate the term co-leader because that sounds presumptuous. Okay, I just put our mission in the chat.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. I will see if I can.
Yeah.
See if I don't have user error now here. Chat. Weird. I'm actually not seeing it in the chat. Isn't this always so fun? This is the fun part.
Let's see.
There it is. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a pain in the butt. It's not letting me copy and paste either. I'll just put it in there.
Okay.
Fine.
Oh. Oh, you want the, oh, I see. Oops, let's do this.
Now, when is your next meeting for LEAT?
we don't have another meeting set. It'll probably be around Labor Day, either just before or just after. We don't have a set meeting date. It's generally once a month.
Is anyone welcome to join, or?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to start showing up in the future. Okay, so this actually limited what I could put for the mission, so I'm just going to go with the first couple of lines there. It seems to really sum it up anyways.
Okay.
This is all new for us too. So Charla is the one who loves to bring in new kind of technology into the mix. Okay, and so the email for the organization is info at.
Yeah, hang on a second. I'll get that too.
Okay. I love that this is being recorded so everyone can see both of us struggling with the technology. Let me stop clicking on that. Maybe that was
okay. Okay.
Doesn't help that the font is like 0.4.
Yeah.
Great. So I think that's everything. Did you want to briefly go through some of the how you would rank yourself with skills? And it doesn't have to be, obviously an exhaustive list.
What kinds of skills are you? When you say skills, what do you mean?
So, I mean, since this is in regards to kind of like a community organizing kind of thing, it can be anything from, you have years of experience working with like the Lansing community, or, you have tangible hard skills like you write grants, or, you know what I mean?
I wish. Yeah.
Anything that you find that would kind of be useful in going through this project.
Okay.
And, you don't have to do it now either. I don't want to put you on the spot, to go through those things, but, you're more, I believe now you have access to this as well. So you can come back and supplement this if you'd like to.
Yeah. Okay.
But it does break it down by kind of like the things that you're still learning. So, your novice kind of skill sets all the way to like what you would see as, your most core kind of skills.
Yeah. Okay.
So like for me, for example, in the intermediate space is probably, I do a lot of graphic design work as kind of like a side business, that in addition to editing. I'm a managing editor for an academic journal. So these are kind of like all skills that might be helpful in terms of, writing reports for the organization once we get going, or, just checking people's work or creating kind of marketing, items for the group. And the advanced part might be, my ability to use kind of like statistical analysis software to conduct research.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, you can think on those. I want to be respectful of your time as well. We've been talking for quite a bit. So I encourage you to come back to the page and continue to add on where you see fit.
Okay.
It'd be great if you encouraged other members of LEAT to kind of come to these meetings as well. And we would love to come to I know Charla was at your last meeting, but I would also start attending as well. So, just so there is that kind of inter-organizational respect where everybody's, meeting each other,
Yeah.
So
if you're interested, I can add you guys to our mailing list too.
that would be fantastic. Yes, very interested.
Okay. All right. I have Charlotte's email address, but you just send me yours. I can see it. You get an invitation to the list.
Actually, hold on. I'll write it right here because I don't have your michael.cole at otconsultancy. Oh, that's silly. So it's my name, Michael.Cole at otconsultancy.org. I believe Charla's follows the same format.
All right.
Excellent.
What you'll get is an invitation to subscribe to the list, and you just need to reply to that. And then
okay, great.
Yeah.
I'll get this off the page there. Well, Randy, again, thank you for joining in. And again, we're just trying to get this off the ground now, and we still have, quite a bit of work to do, but it's definitely helpful to have more input as we start doing this. Again, our big concern and mine particularly going forward was not kind of taking energy away from existing groups, so I was thinking specifically of the Black Lives Matter movement and, a large kind of mission of what they're doing is obviously related to social equity, justice, access, all of these things. So, we didn't necessarily want to, like I said, take energy away from that, but I do think it's also kind of crucial to organize all of the different elements that exist within the city and then possibly become used for some of these larger organizations as well. So, So yeah, I encourage you to continue coming. I believe we do these, we have special sessions once every 2 weeks on each of those dimensions. So the social equity, we have one on waste management, food security, all that. But then we meet, weekly at this time to continue on this path. So I hope to see you at the next one. And
so when would the next meeting be?
Charla will send out a reminder, but my guess will be a week from today at 11 a.m.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Yep.
Great. Thanks again, Randy. It was great to meet you.
Thanks, Michael. Good to meet you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.